when we think of side control, there's a couple things we should think about. Like side control, we can start getting into it once we've passed the legs from a guard pass. So whatever it happens to be, anytime you start beating the legs, what people often assume is like, you can't just assume you're going to be able to jump in and cross face them, because we're going to go with the preface or the assumption that people will absolutely frame you and not provide you access to the upper portion of their body. So if you're in a side control like this, let's say straighten up. Yeah, so we passed. Even if he's not very good, as long as he keeps like good frames, I'm not going to be able to access the upper part of his body. So just do a double frame on my arm like this. You're not going to be able to grab, right? The main thing actually to be concerned about is not trying to overreach and get stuff like this, because you're just going to open up the hips and he's going to be able to hip and get in, right? So when you start off side control, like the only thing you really have, move down a little bit, is like you've compromised this, right? So it's most important to keep this pinned with your elbow and your hip. Like don't overstretch this way too much. Your weight is kind of still in the back. You're trying to establish this, it might not work, right? This is the proper way to do it. Some people still do it where they'll frame at the hip. This is a really bad idea, because if I just flop my hip over and if I make you connect your elbow to the ground, you're gonna break your wrist most likely. So yeah, if you framed like this, I just honestly just flop over and crush it, right? So that's not a good defense. It might feel like it's a good defense, but it's not. It also doesn't really allow you to open up this hip at all, right? So don't put your hand on the hip. This is what you're looking for. So from this kind of position, the first thing we kind of want to do is settle down on the hip here and pinch them in so they can't get it, right? Next thing you almost want to do is, if I keep leaning in this way really, really hard, I won't be able to kind of beat the upper portion of the body because you have good frames, right? So if you can start pulling this up and walking your knee underneath, like your leg, that's what you want to exploit, right? Getting underneath of it, right? But that's going to be difficult to do if he's got good alignment. So he's got frames and stuff like this. So you notice right now, he's pretty good. If I reach for this, I can't. I want to use actually what I can access is like the lower half of his body. I'm going to do that with my hip on the right side to push it over. So I pinch this, he's got really good frame, so I can't get in. What I can do is start walking over with my hip. So that's pretty difficult for you to stop, yeah? Can't flat. And then once I'm here, I can actually take this arm and either pull up or swim underneath and get this kind of underhook. And using a placeholder system, with my arms under here, you can't close your elbow, correct? Then I can start to slide my leg in, right? So now I've kind of occupied this inside space here, at which point I can reach over, swim back over top. Now you should feel like I can access the crossface, right? So when we come to crossface mechanics, take your middle finger and basically look to reach underneath the guy's armpit and pull in like you're doing a row. So the whole point is, if you do have a good crossface, is if you reach in here like this, and don't drive forward because my center of gravity will go over. What I actually want to do is I want to have this and roll back and then crush down with my shoulder and all my weight. So if he doesn't do anything, like it'll be really difficult to keep facing me because my shoulder's along the jawline here. So you're using his chin as a lever to his neck, right? So lots of pressure. Depending on what you want to do, most people will turn this way, which is okay. You can start accessing the back and stuff. If you don't want them to do that, all you do is collect their arm here. So if he tries to turn away, he can't, right? So he's just gonna eat that pressure. So, I'm being pretty, not super terrible. I'll show you what, but the goal is, if you want a strong side control, that you should almost be able to tap guys from this position. And how you would do that is, I'm on my knees and my feet right now, all the pressure's there. But if you start breaking up, and I start walking my hip out in a way, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
it almost feels like a choke.
Correct.
Almost.
So if you don't hold this, I'll eventually smoosh him that way. But there's nothing wrong with just grinding him into paste underneath you. And I'm not a big dude either, right?
Yeah.
So again, the finger underneath here, pulling in, and this is gi, no gi, it doesn't matter. You're rolling him down, back and pulling, and then you're just driving in. And again, if you don't want him to go that way, just cup the arm. And if I cup this, also my left hip is starting to access the lever of his right arm here. He might come around. Sometimes I'll put my hand on the hip here to walk him, but it sucks. That
It
much.
sucks.
But people will, like on occasion, you can, the mindset of the guy on top should be like, you almost want to try and tap the guy with that. Obviously anybody competent won't let you do it, but it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
It's tons of pressure.
Yeah.
So if you give them that to think about, they're not going to be thinking about you. They'll give you the amount if it means you'll stop crushing them
Yeah.
in most cases.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
I'm good with that. Yeah.
So in terms of like what levers we're accessing in the initial work, you can't really break his, I can't really break his posture because I can't reach his head, right? I can't really break his structure because his elbows are on the side. The only thing I can really affect in terms of the alignment here is I can do this, right? So I can break the base and his posture through the lower body, not the upper, right? And then once I'm here, we talked about either lifting up or getting the underhook. If you want, you can take the gi and you can grab and pull, or just cup the shoulder scapula if it's no gi. And again, because I've made this purchase point with my bicep here, I replace it with my leg, and then you can swim in, and now you can start to look for this, right? So again, once you're in this position, you want that middle finger right into the armpit. If I pull myself in, it's not as efficient as rolling him out and underneath me, right? And then usually from here, you're just looking to put all your weight into it. And try not to be super rough, but you're kind of, you want to hold, you're coming up and really driving a lot of pressure.
From your toes, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You almost want to be at a 45-degree angle, driving this kind of this way. And yeah, you can tap people from it. Maybe not anybody good, but it's a real thing, right?